My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and I'm here today with Coach Tarek. So he's a passionate health and fitness expert, international educator, and a best-selling author. He's dedicated his life to empowering others on their wellness journeys, and alongside being the co-founder of the Functional Training Institute and FitWell Educational Lab, he's pioneered online health and fitness solutions that redefine the game. His journey has taken him across the globe, presenting at the biggest conventions in Australia, Asia, and the US. He's had the privilege of sharing his knowledge with thousands of trainers in Australia, Asia, the Middle East, and South America. His book, Purpose Driven Movement, has struck a chord with readers seeking not just physical fitness, but a holistic approach to a purposeful life. And I'm very excited to introduce you now to Coach Tarek and see how he came to all these things on his journey.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks for the warm introduction. I'm usually where you are, interviewing guests, and I'm in admiration because it's a wonderful thing, and sometimes it's not an easy thing, but we fall into it, and it's a position of privilege. So it's great to be on the show.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And like you said, it is interesting being on the other end of the microphone, right?
Being interviewed rather than
doing the work.
Yeah, exactly. And I love. I mean, for me now, I'm wanting to be on shows more, and I feel grateful for being here, for example, and being able to share my story, my wisdom, if there's some that people can garner from it. And just inspire people as best we can, and this is one of the vehicles in which we can do that.
100%. And then the magic of just being able to share a bit of your journey and how you've now got this amazing book and how it's come about. It's really nice to hear the backstory.
Yeah, thank you. Some probably hear that my dog barking in the background. Yeah, so it's just right behind me to my right where I'm pointing, and there's a slogan there, if you can see it, and it's essentially Our Students Change Lives. And the purpose-driven movement, I finished, actually. It was an interesting one because my then co-founder and business partner, we've split amicably, Dan Henderson. 2016, we met with one of our mentors because we had an idea, and this idea was to present our education concepts and our system of functional training, to put it into a book, because we felt that we could reach many more people that way. And conversely, by them reading the book, they could then be interested in some of our education programs, which the book's been a massive blessing in many ways. So we started it. We took, I remember, 2 days off work. We went to a different location to start mapping out the concept and the introduction and so forth, and the research behind it. And then we got busy. We parked it. And for about a year and a half, something was nagging me. And I said to Dan, something inside of me says, we need to complete the book. And he wasn't really interested. He said, look, did you want to go and finish it? I said, yeah, I do. So that became my project, my pet project. Between 2013, when the doors opened, if you will, for us to teach overseas, and we had the opportunities emerge for workshops in the health, fitness, sort of wellness space, then I was traveling, teaching, opening up new territories for us in Asia, Middle East. Of course, we came from Australia. We first started off in Sydney. So every opportunity that I had, I was doing workshops, transiting at the airports, and just riding as much as I could. And whilst that's passion and purpose fueling that, it certainly wouldn't advocate that as an ongoing strategy, because I did burn out a little bit in 2019, middle of, as a result of really working my butt off to get the book published, which it became published in self-published first in 2019 of March. And then the self-publication company from Australia who ended up selling it, called Grammar Factory, to a Canadian company, recommended our book to a publishing arm or a firm that they would often associate with potential authors and interesting books. And they vetted the book and said, yep, we'd like to publish your book. They're Morgan James Publishing Company in New York. And so it eventually became a version 2.0, which you can see right behind me. And it became officially published only sort of 2 years ago. So, but in that meantime, the book had been in the hands of many people, either purchasing it or part of their programs. And, it's not, wouldn't say it's a New York bestseller or anything, but it's for us, it's helped many people, Catherine, and it continues to do so. And essentially it's our philosophies, our models, our training practices, that anyone can read, even if they're not a professional in the fitness or health industry. So, yeah, it's opened up a lot of opportunities, and I love writing. I love to read. So it was a real perfect fit for me to complete the book and have that blessing of being an author, which I'm really grateful for, and to be able to reach quite a few people with the book.
Yeah, and I love how the book evolved, took its own life, right? Like, you're like, it's done, I've published it, let's see what happens. And all of a sudden, oh, now it's been bought by a publishing house. Oh, now what's going to happen? And then it took its own life.
Yeah, and that's right. And then I formed the podcast from the book. Really, the name of the book, Purpose Driven Movement. There's the podcast, there's the book, and then a first mentorship that we're running in Cyprus this year on October 12th to 19th, which is the Purpose Driven Movement conference. We've got that happening, and I've got one in China that I'm launching as well. A whole mentorship. It's definitely open up these other opportunities. And I love mentoring. I love, of course, coaching, mentoring, and that's my game, if you like. And yeah, it's opening up many more opportunities. Grateful for it. And like you said, sometimes these things take a life of their own. Whether it's your Willow Healing podcast or but it starts with an idea. It starts with a passion and purpose and a commitment to follow that through, even in the face of negativity or lacking encouragement. We all sometimes need that. So that's there are obstacles, I think, often to things that are meaningful to pursue.
I don't think there's a chance when you go through life and it's and you don't get some sort of obstacle because you need it to grow, right? You need it to grow your mindset, your resilience, whatever it might be, and it lets you to step into a new identity of a new person you need to be as you go to that next walk of life.
Sure, yeah, and I think there's no failing, there's only learning, and or falling upward, if you like, as a term that I've heard. Yeah, falling upward.
I love that. So if someone wants to pick up your book, what can they expect?
Yeah, good question. So the book is broken up into obviously chapters, but it's the system around how to assess. So assess with purpose. So that's the idea. We run with that idea of purpose. Really, in everything we do in our systems of teaching, it's deliberate practice or purposeful practice, which is a term by Anders Ericsson, I should say. That his incredible studies around purposeful practice and what it means to actually learn a new skill. So that's the first chapter, which is how to assess with purpose. And I confided in my good friend and physio, Australian physio, Ulrich Larson, to help construct that chapter. We wanted really the depth and breadth of what true assessing means in really understanding how to talk with the client, patient, for example, communication skills and so forth, and framing up the doing, so the activities that will be undertaken, whether it be assessment or just going into classes or performing a routine, and then also observing. So the coach learns how to properly observe the client in their body language, but also in the way that they move, and then looks to make sure that there's these corrections that take place as part of their movement journey, for example, without paralyzing them and thinking that they're not well, or that they need fixing. It's the whole paradigm of the wellness, right? Your whole podcast is on healing and wellness, so it's looking at that spectrum. So it's preventative, and it's really treating that client or that patient with the dignity and respect that this is a journey that they're going on. It's not a once-off sweat class or kind of get muscle gains, and that all those things can come, but it's much more meaningful than that. And then we move into the other pillar, which is how to move. So there's a whole movement system, and so we created the adaptive functional training system, and there's 5 pillars to that: restore function and movement, which is pillar 1, and then understanding body weight application. You don't have to load the client straight away, for example. So then we move into loaded movement. What does loaded movement look like? How do you progress these things? Then into more strength and power elements of one's movement journey, and then looking at integrating complex functional patterns, cognitive load, all of those things that come into that. So that's the whole fluid model of the 5 pillars. And then in the middle of that, if you can imagine, it's sort of like that, and they're flowing in this diagram. In the middle, in the core, is ongoing assessing and coaching. So the third pillar is coaching with purpose, and that's the whole communication framework that I created and put into that book, the soft skills of how you work in with clients or patients. And then finally, the 4th element is how to program. So the program with purpose, and that's putting it all together and treating that like a journey. So how do they progress and understand programming so that they can do it on their own, or how does a trainer or a coach look at that and make sense of it to create a proper system of movement? So, and then there's a whole resources too that they get as videos and templates and whatnot. That's part of the picture when they buy the book. But yeah, that's the inspiration behind it. And of course, then those chapters, those four main elements, form part of our education. So from there, we've created courses that inform each of those chapters, and they could be anywhere from 100-hour long courses to 8-hour programs, and delivered face-to-face or online. So, education's our thing. And but the books, even more deep than that, we have our whole philosophies behind what we do as well, and our values and everything that's informed our education practices.
Yeah, and I love that you have encompassed with writing this book kind of multiple aspects, because to me, it sounds like you're not just working on the body, you're actually looking at the mindset a little bit too, right? Because often you go through that gym journey and at some point you'll hit a plateau, right? Or you'll hit a wall. And it's when you can have that mindset and a coach to help you get through that, to keep adjusting your program and allow you to see where you need to move forward, that will keep you going rather than quitting in that moment because you're like, it's not doing anything anyway.
Yeah, big time. And you're quite spot on there, Catherine. And, again, it's not beholden or limited to the gym space. That's one element of it that I want to make clear, even though that's a space that I'm well familiar with, having owned and operated 2 different types of functional gyms. And more recently, though, I've moved into some research at Southern Cross University, looking at green exercise or nature-based physical activity and the emergence of mindfulness, and then the specific wellbeing outcomes. So I'm on the 2nd study at the moment on that research. And so that research takes into account people's experiences, what emerges for them when they do regular practice in nature. So we look at well-being as the banner here, and that could be people prefer recreation. So how do we nudge them to movement in nature, right? Whether it's gentle trails or mountain bike riding or rock climbing or anything like that, or even the blue spaces, out in the ocean or kayaking in the river. So there are those facets. And then there's sport, right? There's recreation, there's competitive sport. And then there's the fitness element. So, we don't want to lose sight that everything is limited to a gym. That's really one aspect, and it's an important aspect, and certainly it's been commodified and it continues to be commoditized even, with the latest this or latest that. And so for me, part of my mission too, Catherine, is to kind of shift people's perspectives to go, well, okay, I've got a little gym here that I work from. I train barefoot. I walk barefoot mostly. And just to encourage people to take an integral or holistic approach, as you alluded to earlier. And really that's been my mission, is to look at things like integral theory and looking at different perspectives, and the movement's no different. And so there'll be people who they have no preference for being in the same space as other people, especially in a gym environment that could be intimidating. So how do you train at a park, for example, where there's grass, there's trees, or at the beach, or simply alter the perspective to go, well, ride a bike, go for a stroll, and then maybe that's a run, or maybe that's up a mountain, or whatever it could be. And there's just degrees of that. And one of the great examples I give is, like, we had a client in one of my gyms, which was Primal Energy Fitness, too many P's, in St. Peter's in Sydney, and that was one of the first functional gyms in Sydney. We opened in 2012. About a year later, a lady walked in, and confidence was very low, and her self-esteem was definitely low. But she had the courage to step in and just inquire about transforming her physique and wanting to get fitter and all of those things at a superficial level. So we did our tests and had our conversations, and when she first started, she couldn't even row the ski erg for 100 meters, and that was fine. So we said, okay, just work at your own rate. We'll build up your fitness. And lo and behold, through conversations, through building trust, through the communication methods, and giving her micro doses of movement, and then adding more complexity, there was more adherence. She enjoyed it. She was engaged. And it took about a good, I'd say, 6 months to then see the transformation. I mean, if you documented it like literally week by week, you'd see this incredible transformation. And the transformation was inside out. That was the amazing thing, was, of course, she lost weight. She felt stronger, but more confident. So all of these sort of qualitative outcomes just burst through. And the biggest thing that, and I still had tingles just sharing this story, was that a few months later, we got a postcard. She'd wanted to always travel, and one of the places she wanted to travel was Machu Picchu. And she sent a postcard, and she'd been atop of Machu Picchu, one of the trails. And, she had her arms triumphantly up and said, "Thank you, Ray and Tarek," my business partner then, you allowed me to achieve my ultimate goal. So isn't this interesting, right? Her ultimate goal was to do that. But in order to do that, she knew that she needed this transformation, and it had to start somewhere. That's the thing. There's incredible shifts that take place, and realization for people that it takes time, and it's a powerful story. I really share that, because sometimes at the surface people go, yeah, I want this, I want that, I want to lose a few kilos, but actually there's much, much more, like you said earlier, to it than just sweating or gaining muscle, because
Exactly.
we are physical creatures as much as we are spiritual, I believe, too. So and then we have the mental faculties too to obviously modulate hormonal responses, energy levels, and things like that.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I love that story so much, because in the end, if she was honest about, probably with herself, she knew this vision she had. I want to go to Machu Picchu one day. And then there would have been some little seed of like, well, I need to be fit to do that. And then for her to have the courage to come in to your center and start. But that's the biggest thing with what you said, Coach Tarek, is you just have to start with something small and make that conscious decision to change. And then that's when you can truly change your life.
Yeah, it's that micro dosing again. And so it's interesting, because maybe that worked for Mary, right? Because I can't disclose the name, but it worked for Mary in that if Mary had set a goal that was Machu Picchu, she didn't even believe that would happen, because that was too far aloft, literally and metaphorically. And so it was then the realization, she started getting fitter. She started to experience the gains physically and mentally, and then there was that realization after weeks and weeks that this could happen. But it became almost like a secret goal for her that was that sacred, perhaps. Sacred's probably the word, that she wanted to share it at that final penultimate moment. And I thought, wow, geez, this is just incredible. Because we knew that even if she, hadn't achieved that, she had achieved so much and had a continuity of a movement journey. So yeah, you're quite right, I think, is that sometimes we just need to start somewhere. And in this case, it was just starting at the very, very base level, which is where most people need to start that journey to wherever it is that you desire.
Yeah, and I love too how you framed how for her, she couldn't do 100 meters on the row with the rowing machine, but at the same time, that became almost her goal, just to start. Like, hey, let's just start this little goal first, and a lot of people I know, they'll be like, oh, it's just too hard. But if you don't start, it's never going to get easier.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the real 101 for the coaches that I mentor is, don't overdo it and temper the expectations that you have of your client. And that's where you need to frame things up firstly and foremostly with the client. Understand first their perspective and then step into your own and get them to do the same. And it becomes dynamic because you're shifting perspectives. And that's the only way that you're going to earn the trust and respect and really get to the bottom of what it is that they want to ultimately achieve.
Yeah, and I feel too, like if you're always hurting or it's too hard, you're not going to get that dopamine hit of want to keep going back. And I know personally I've experienced that because I was doing a Pilates reformer class and I just felt completely shattered every time. And I'm like, come on, I've been going for months now. I expected that after the first, few weeks, but not months and months later. And I made this decision for other reasons to stop going. And I started doing my own workout and yoga and things at home. And I was so much happier. I lost and toned so much quicker. And I wasn't feeling like my body was breaking afterwards because I can tune in more that way. And I know it. Whereas sometimes when we go to these, and I'm not bagging it out, but sometimes we go to these one-stop classes. We don't know how to always adjust it for our body and what's right for us too.
Yeah, that's a great point, Catherine. Yeah, and that's there's lots to be said around, in that context that you shared, perhaps, putting yourself there with good intentions, perhaps, maybe not being intentionally, correct, if you like, about it, or aligned, I should say. So, and so that's a stressor itself. So if you're adding stress and you're trying to do that thing and you're forcing it, you'll tighten up and of course that stress response adds more cortisol than you need. And then that just perpetuates. It's really hard to lose weight or tone up or whatever it is because you're resisting that thing that actually will add more benefits to you, but it just wasn't not conducive, the environment, everything. So it's a very insightful point you made there.
Yeah, and exactly. And I love that you brought up the cortisol part as well, because a lot of people don't realize that stress does keep on weight and it was funny, quite a few episodes ago, I interviewed a woman that specializes in female health. And she said that's such a big thing, the cortisol. If you don't get that under control, it affects your hormones as well. And then you can't lose weight and you lose your hair and everything else that comes from that. And a lot of people forget how much that stress hormone does impact more than just, oh, I feel really stressed.
Yeah, big time. It has ramifications on your sleep and everything. It definitely is a catalyst for bad outcomes. And I had that for a number of years too, where, even though I was this coach and this figure that people looked up to, I couldn't push it because I was stressing myself too much, as I shared with that story about overloading my nervous system, and cortisol was way too high. So I needed to deal with that. And once you do deal with that, the weight just comes off and you're in your happier space, if you like. And then, like you said as well, which is a key message or something to glean for those listening is, you need to find that right activity, like I alluded to, whether that's recreation or whether it's at home, you prefer to train in your own and you're autonomous, you have that personality, or you need the accountability. So therefore find a good coach, or it's a class because you like the social element. there are all these other dynamics that come into play, and it's not just fitness or not just exercise, because there's the social element potentially. So you're really understanding what it is that you want, where you'd thrive is really key, and then just pursuing that. And for a lot of people, I think, Catherine, there's we're social beings. So, joining a bushwalking club, I once did that, or joining whatever it is, a gym versus sport or swimming or martial arts. All of these things ultimately are good, and you need to sometimes double in them and then eventually find the right place where you feel you belong, in a sense. So
yeah, I used to have a swimming buddy, and we used to get up really early and go swimming together. And the pool, fortunately, was heated. Exactly. um, and I love too, Coach Tarek, how you bring in not just the gym space, but like you said, the green spaces and the blue spaces, because it's so important to remember that, exactly as you said, the gym might not be where you're pulled. It might be out to go do that mountain bike ride or out to go do that hike or whatever it might be. And in the end, it's trying to find the movement practice that aligns with your soul and what makes you feel good doing it too.
yeah, precisely. I was fortunate to grow up near the beaches in Sydney and lots of park space, and played a lot of sports. So, for me, it was just something that I grew up with, and I continue to appreciate, whenever I see a beach and waves, it's the weather for it, I'll jump in and have a body surf, or just walk along the sand, and earth and be connected, or have a run on the beach. So, for a lot of people, there's access to that. For other people, there isn't so much access to those green and blue spaces. And if you do have access to it, make the most of it. Honestly, it's right before us, and it's there to be connect. We need to connect, I think, with nature, and not treat it just as an other thing. I think we're ultimately a part of it.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful sentiment, because there's so much studies now helping to back that up. When you're exercising out in nature and connected with that energy around you, it does help bring your cortisol down quicker. It does help your body auto-inflammatory responses reduce. Being near the beach and the waves helps because of the negative ions. Actually, pools does the same effect, but to a greater effect. So it's it's catching up, and if you can do and at least change where you're doing your movement, why not?
Yeah, I concur totally. Yeah, and mix it up perhaps as well, because you're right. Because not that I still do some traditional fitness and functional in particular, but I still love to do these outdoor activities as well, and the recreation component is always important. And for as long as I'm blessed to walk and be able to use my limbs, I'll do that.
Why not? Exactly. And as we start to finish up our time together, Coach Tarek, I ask the guests that come on the show if there's something that they could change or heal in the world, what would it be?
Yeah, very good question. I need to center myself. I think that integral approach to one's well-being, and that's treating the spiritual element, whether that's meditation, prayer practices, and connecting with the higher source. Some mental health strategies, preventative, which would also be meditation, for example, breath work, and then the movement. Really getting to some movement practice that is conducive, that feels good for you, that you can do for a long time. All this longevity of one's fitness and well-being. And to really treat it like a journey, I think, as whether it's you competitive, that's fine, be competitive, but treat it long term. Like, do you really want to damage yourself and not be able to walk properly in subsequent decades? So that's fine. And some people are less competitive and just want to cruise along, but just keep doing something and enjoy the moment and don't just do it like because you're forced into doing it for someone else. Just do it for yourself, mostly, and respect the body, and it will give you a lot. It will enable you to do things that you maybe never have thought before, and try to diminish your stress. I think ultimately these things that we discussed, is to reduce stress and prevent illness. So really focusing on the well-being spectrum versus, if I'm sick, how do I cure myself? Let's try to avoid that.
Yeah, and you want to have your body in such a state that when you do get faced with an illness, it recovers quite quickly because it just wants to go back to that homeostasis because it likes being there.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So really making sure that, in a sense, that you do have that balance and that prevention for both physically and mentally. There's a set point that the body will go to, which is homeostasis, and being really in tune to that. Today, like for example, I didn't feel up to doing my regular workout routine, so I said that's fine. I give my permission. That's fine. I usually stretch every morning, and so just sort of being in tune to how your body feels. If you're not feeling 100%, just rest the body, listen to it a little bit more. So I think we need to be a bit more attuned to our true selves, our higher selves, and tap into that. So that gives us the answers, and that's facilitated through meditation, prayer, and those type of contemplative practices as well.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing up that point that if you're tired, listen to your body and rest. I think that's a message for both of us at the moment too, because, especially I feel like we resonate because you just have so much you want to share with the world and you just keep pushing. But sometimes you actually just need to stop and find that quiet place and rest and reset. And like you said, come back into your heart and to your higher self to trust the meditation, your prayer, whatever comes through, and then reset and keep going when you're ready.
Yeah, ultimately that's it, and that's part of the whole journey of one's life. And I think that the movement spectrum, what we've primarily discussed in the well-being space, is it needs to be hot on the topic through these conversations, dinner table conversations, to just encourage this dialogue and not fall into illness. That spectrum of we've got the medical side that primarily focuses on that, but we need to look at preventative and and ultimately work in with the medical sector to provide solutions that aren't just alternative, but actually they're probably the number one option when in the event an emergency, most of the time isn't required. And so how do we then prevent that? Sometimes accidents happen and these type of things. And genetically, some people, fall into illness a lot easier with their receptivity, but most people, are blessed to be able to do the things that enable them to move and flourish. So yeah, look, treat it as the whole integral element, mind, body, spirit. For some people, they might need to understand in their own way what the spiritual journey looks like. It's different for everyone, and but that's for me has been ultimately important to look at the holistic or the integral approach to our well-being, but not to dismiss what the medical side has done in the West, but also the West to learn from the East. Some of the healing practices to heal trauma, whether it's mental or physical, are there. We just, I think, need to integrate and look at different perspectives. I think that's ultimately it, because we can get caught in our own perspective at an individual level, then at a collective, and go, no, our process is, we don't want to listen to those wackos in the East. Their methods don't work well here in the West. Okay, well, that's tribalism, right? So
yeah,
we could keep talking, I think, Catherine, but I think the message hopefully is a little clear, and there's some anecdotes and some interesting tidbits for people to make sense of their own journey. That's ultimately what it is, not about who I am necessarily, but if I can encourage through my story and get people to rethink their own, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said too, there needs to be kind of a marriage between the two. But at the same time, for anyone that's been listening to this conversation, it's all about listening to what's right for you in the end, because you know your body the best, you know your soul the best, you know your mindset the best.
Yes.
And our coach, the better coaches can support you and challenge you and help you to create this vision or who you want to become. But in the end, it does come back to the power that you have in you.
Yeah. Very well said, Catherine. Yeah, couldn't agree anymore.
Yeah. And how can people come work with you, Coach Tarek, or come find your book?
Yeah, look, purpose-driven movement. You could check that out. Amazon, I think, would be the one, or other bookstores even. But I think if you wanted to share any links in your show notes, I can give a link to my website. Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm a little bit on socials, but LinkedIn's probably a good way. And then have a conversation. Yeah, if you wanted to chat further about these areas of interest around purpose-driven movement or my research and green exercise, feel free to check in. And I'd love to be able to help those listeners out there who might be interested in what I do.
Perfect. I want to say purpose instead of perfect. So there's too many P's. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, Coach Tarek, and for sharing your journey with your book, how your book got its own life, but also how you see person and people as a whole.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Yeah, thanks for facilitating.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.